Welcome to Breast Intentions, the podcast where we take off the bra of expectations and dive into honest, empowering conversations. We're your hosts, Nadine and Cynthia, two Canadian girls who swapped snow boots for flip-flops in the Cayman Islands. This is your space to feel seen, supported, and a little less alone. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of champagne and get ready for your weekly handful of truth, wellness, and empowerment. Welcome back to Breast Intentions. Today, we're joined by Melissa DaCosta, co-founder of The Gray Area and a neurospecialist in Pilates and massage therapy. Through her work and personal journey supporting her husband Oscar through brain cancer, Melissa has become a voice for compassion, resilience, and the often overlooked experience of caring for a partner in midlife. We're diving into what that care truly looks like, physically, emotionally, and relationally.
So on today's episode, we have with us Melissa DaCosta. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And today we're talking about midlife still, but midlife and caring for our loved ones when they're ill, caring for our loved ones as parents, partners, children. And you have a very unique story. And this is about the Gray Area and the initiative that you had started with Oscar. And maybe I'll just get you to share a bit of information on how that started and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oscar was diagnosed a year ago yesterday. So it was an unfortunate series of events where his brother had passed away and Oscar was over in London and he flew back in order to be able to start dealing with the funeral. And the day after he arrived, he wasn't feeling well. Got taken to the hospital, and because his brother had passed away unexpectedly, the doctors decided to do every single test they could throw at him. And for some reason, they decided to do a brain CT scan, and that's when they found the lesion. So when he was diagnosed, it was asymptomatic. He had absolutely no sensation, awareness that anything was going on. There was a couple of things he had told me that I kind of twigged, knowing neurology. But he got diagnosed. The lesion was 1 by 1 centimeter when they took that first picture. And by the time he got into surgery 5 weeks later, it had grown to 5 by 7 centimeters. So it was an extremely rapid progression. Again, my background, I knew quite quickly that we were looking at a pretty serious prognosis and something that was going to forever change his life and something that we weren't going to be able to get back from. So in our process of trying to search out help and trying to find resources, we realized that there's not a lot of support on island for people when they're going through serious diagnoses. And a lot of really serious diagnoses, they get sent up to the States for their treatment. And that's a whole other level of scariness to have to deal with. So we really recognize that there needs to be support for people and their families, especially as they're going through something as serious as this. So we started with the original intention just to be able to address people that have brain cancer. And as we started talking about our initiative and our concept, we had friends that had stroke and were complaining about having gone through a stroke and not having any support or support groups for themselves and their family, no network to be able to pull on. And so our umbrella just slowly expanded as we spoke to more and more people, and we decided to include all serious neurological diseases underneath our umbrella.
It's the Gray Area?
The Gray Area, correct. Okay. Yeah. So the gray matter is one part of the brain. We have white matter and we have gray matter. And we really realize that, every single neurological diagnosis, every stroke is different. Everyone's experience with Parkinson's has a very different outlook and has a very different kind of presentation. And it is just so confusing to figure out because when you talk to one person, you talk to another person, they could have the exact same diagnosis, but very different presentations and very different effects on their life. And so we really realize that anything when we're dealing with neurological, it is a very gray area where it's very hard to understand what it is that the doctors are telling you.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think we were talking about one of the reasons why we wanted you on the podcast was one, to share more information on the Gray Area.
We had our launch party on September 9th at F2O, Finds to Ocean restaurant. We're just getting our wrists and elbows deep into this.
Okay, so the 1 year was Oscar's diagnosis.
Oscar's diagnosis, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the main area that we wanted to focus on today was you. and you as a caregiver, you as his partner, and being in midlife, where sometimes we don't see a lot of this until we're later on in life with our partners. But we really wanted to focus on it because obviously you are going through a number of things, probably emotionally, physically, mentally, and then having probably midlife on top of it, having to deal with personal things as well for yourself. So I just really wanted to take an opportunity to have you on so that you can share a little bit, because I think that there's also a number of people who are also caregivers that don't have the support systems either. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You did sort of allude a little bit to this, that you do have a background in neurology. So how does your background and now being going through this with Oscar, how have those two perspectives shape your view?
In a lot of ways, it has made it easier on both of us because I understand what the doctors are saying, and I can understand how to challenge and have the conversations with the doctors. And I think a lot of people, when they're facing a really serious illness, they don't even know where to start to ask the questions in order to be able to protect themselves. And all of this information is just thrown at you. And doctors have very limited amount of time that they're able to spend with you. And you are hearing all these big, crazy words that are multiple syllables and no actual comprehension of what that means. So for me, I can go into the doctors and I can speak the same language as them, and I can challenge them. And I'm like, well, I don't necessarily agree with this, how we thought about this. And at least there's a common meeting ground. There's an ability to have a conversation instead of just being told information. It makes it so much easier to remember that Oscar is the patient at the end of this, and the ultimate goal for everyone should be showing him compassion and showing him the understanding that he deserves to have as he's dealing with this terminal diagnosis. So in a lot of ways, it has made it so much easier for actually navigating Oscar's journey. In terms of the nonprofit organization, it really feels like it's a calling. I started in massage therapy, working in a long-term care facility with people that were either in a vegetative state or in a prolonged rehab program in order to try and get them back into their homes. So I've always worked with this, trying to maintain the patient as autonomous and giving them a voice in the environment. And most medicine is not set up to actually provide that. Medicine is there to make the body better and to make those cells function better if they can. But there lacks that certain personal connection with the patient in most of these situations. So it's been wonderful for me to be able to kind of make sure that I can protect him and have, the conversations with him and take some of the load off of the doctors as well, that they don't have to do all of the really heavy lifting and sad things that they have to tell him on a basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. So when a partner faces a major health challenge like brain cancer, what are some of the first shifts that people will notice happening as far as like the relationship? I guess we could start there.
Yeah. In terms of the relationship, we were very quickly thrust into a very overwhelming medical world. And so it's really challenging to have to go from a wife to being a nurse to, Oscar had his rights to drive taken away on the day that he was diagnosed. So all of a sudden I was chauffeur. He was already probably feeling some effects that he wasn't willing to acknowledge. So immediately nurse, the medications, he's been on upwards of 25 to 26 different medications on a day-by-day basis. So, instantly I become nurse and pharmacist. And, so it can prove to be very challenging. I talk about autonomy a lot. It can prove to be very challenging as a caregiver to maintain the autonomy for yourself to, protect yourself and to not just try and do everything and still remember that you love this person and that you need to try and maintain a relationship through it all. Oscar and I are very lucky that we have a fantastic sense of humor between the two of us. And we decided from day one that we were just going to laugh our way through it. And we're going to make our doctors laugh. And we're going to make everyone just try and be as happy as possible around us, because it makes it easier on both of us. And it allows us to maintain that relationship component. But, realistically on a day-by-day basis with where he is in his health right now, it's a lot more caregiving and a lot less relationship. I give a ton, but sometimes you don't get a lot of reciprocal action,
Right.
and it's just because he doesn't have the capabilities or the energy to be able to do it. So
Right.
I know he loves me very, very dearly, but sometimes you just have to put your trust and your faith into the fact that he does see what I'm doing and he does recognize it, and he does still love me, even if the words don't come as often as they used to.
Which, I mean, you weren't married for very long.
No. We got married the Wednesday before he was supposed to go into surgery, and the hurricane came through, so it got delayed by a week. So yeah, he's had brain cancer longer than we've been husband and wife, and that adds a whole other level of challenges to trying to establish a relationship and kind of figure out that husband-wife living together. And then you add in doctor's appointments and chemotherapy and radiation and multiple stints in ICU, and it's an interesting field to navigate for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. So many people in midlife are juggling the career, the children, the aging parents, and having a relationship. How can caring for a partner with a health condition fit into an already full plate without losing yourself in the process?
And that's really tricky. And I think it's every day. It requires a commitment to practicing to try and find the balance. And some days I really get it, and some days I really don't. You just have to, there's a lot of sleepless nights where I'm up trying to figure out how to solve the problems that I need to for the day after, how I solve trying to get to work myself and have him still be able to make his appointments. So it's a huge amount of juggling. And a lot of that happens after he goes to bed and he's asleep. That's when I can actually get everything of keeping life together done. And then when he's awake, I just try and spend as much time with him as I can, because I don't know how much longer we will have. And if I spend all of my time while he's, still quite good and strong and communicative, I don't want to waste that time away and then sit there at the end and have regrets that I chose to try and keep everything else afloat instead of paying attention to the one that's actually the most important in this process right now.
Right. Yeah. What do you do for yourself?
I try and get into the gym as much as possible. So that's, every hour, every morning, I try and commit 1 hour to myself. And that's the only hard, fast rule that I have for myself. That's the one spot where I can go and I can just stop thinking and I can just focus on myself. And if I get that hour, it's absolutely amazing. And it completely changes my entire day of how I can function and deal with my challenges. And I can really feel it on the days that I can't fit that in. It is much harder days on both of us because my tank is just a little bit emptier.
Right. Because that's important too.
Yeah.
It's that balance, I suppose, with, wanting to spend as much time with him as you can and caring for him as much as you can, but not burning yourself out or.
Yeah. And because I haven't really been working since his diagnosis, I'm just trying to get back into some work right now outside of the nonprofit, but teaching some Pilates again. But because I was the one that wasn't working, his mom is in early onset dementia. So I was the one that got nominated to take her to all of her doctor's appointments as well, because again, I can talk with the neurologist and I understand what's going on in the brain. So, it's everyone kind of, I think from a distance, if they don't understand what it's like to be a caregiver for someone that is as sick as Oscar is, it just seems like I'm just sitting there and I'm having a great old time. And I'm drinking mimosas every single morning, and I might have to drive him to a doctor's appointment. So here's just some more stuff to add to your plate. And I've become very good at saying no, finally, for the first time in my life. It's, I've really had to put my foot down a couple times and say, like, I just don't have it in me.
Yeah,
so
good for you.
Figure out something else.
And I think as women in midlife, I think we've kind of put on that brave face a lot and said, yeah, I got it. I can do this. But then recognizing when we don't and having to say no can be difficult. Yeah. Creates that guilt. Yeah. We feel bad a lot of the time. But recognizing that.
I am a carer. Even before Oscar got sick, I am the carer. I am the person that I know my friend has a sniffle. I will be checking on them 5 times a day. How's your sniffle? Is everything okay? Can I bring you something? So I've always been the person to do everything I can for everyone else. And it's really been over the last couple of months, I've realized that I keep on pouring from a cup that is almost empty. Mm-hmm. And if I don't start taking better care of myself and starting to fill my cups a little bit more carefully,
you won't be able to do what it is that you need to do, right?
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It renders me ineffective. And I'm not in a place in my life right now where I can be ineffective. I have no choice but to sit there and show up every single day and just get things done. So there's a whole lot of push through, and then a whole lot of but give myself some grace, because I can't do it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Canada.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people might have about being a caregiver to a partner, especially around this age, like during midlife?
Oh,
well, it's probably that they think you sit at home drinking mimosas.
Maybe I answered it.
Unfortunately, yes. I think people like to think they understand the emotional toll on a caregiver.
Yeah.
I don't think until you are in that place, you can ever wrap your head around just how much emotional toll there is. My dad had pancreatic cancer, and they had given him 2 weeks to live when he was diagnosed, and he actually lasted 9 months before he passed away. And it's just that it's the slow, steady grinding that really starts to beat you down when you first start and you're like, okay, I'm going to be a caregiver and I've got this and I've got all the energy and I've got all the compassion and the empathy. And, we're coming up to a year now, and Oscar is still going through chemo, and we know we'll never reach remission. And it's the death by 1,000 cuts. And it just, the weight seems heavier and heavier and heavier as you get deeper and deeper into it, especially when the water's not going to turn around, the boat's not going to turn around. And so preparing for the future and having even some understanding of what that's going to look like over the next 3 to 6 months can be really just overwhelming as well. And I don't think a lot of people realize just how difficult it can be on that person.
Right.
Yeah, because we talked about the burnout, like if you just go, but that doesn't even take into account the emotional side of things.
Yeah.
It's really just the physical.
I mean, the man hours and the physical component of it, and the hey, can you help me? Oh, no, you can't help me out on this. Never mind. That sort of stuff is exhausting on a day by day basis. But my toughest time in the day is probably between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. when my hormones are raging and doing absolutely everything they can to make my sleep destroyed. And I just sit there and I just spin and spin and spin, trying to solve problems. And it's, that's really where things start to cut you down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right.
What strategies have you found most supportive for maintaining a sense of partnership rather than slipping fully into parent caregiver role?
In between Oscar and I think we just try and make each other laugh as much as possible, even when there is something that is just so not funny. You will just try and figure out how to turn it around and make each other smile and laugh. And I think that's probably the thing that really helps us on a day by day basis. Personally, I have a network of 5 or 6 friends that are just my do and dies. And I know it doesn't matter what time of day or night. I know that I've got those people there as a net, but I can just call them up. They will always listen to me. That makes a big difference. When I quite often say, it takes a community to raise a child. It takes a community to get someone to their last days of their life as well. Yeah. And if you don't have that, it's just exponentially harder.
Yeah.
Right.
So network, like my friends are so important to being able to maintain my balance.
Well, and just as an outsider, and my partner is friends with Oscar, the amount of people that came together when
it's overwhelming, and Oscar was very secretive about his diagnosis for the first 7 or 8 months. He was really in a fair bit of denial, which I wanted him to stay in, because as soon as you lose that will to push through, everything will change dramatically. And so I did not challenge him, as he said that, he's going to be here 10 years from now. I know that 95% of glioblastoma patients do not survive past 6 to 9 months. So the fact that he's gotten to a year is because we have been so positive and we have kind of protected that part of him where his optimism is definitely what's kept him alive. But as the information started to get out to Oscar's social network, which is absolutely massive, it was really challenging for me because friends would call me like, "Oh, I heard you have brain cancer and that you've had it for the last 6 months. How are you doing?" It's like, "I'm fantastic. Everything's going to be great. I'm going to kick this. I'm going to be, I'm going to be up and running around in a couple of months." And then they would call me and they're like, "But that's not what I heard."
Right.
And I have had to be the bearer of bad news to absolutely everyone. And I always finish with like, "I've told you what's going on, but please don't change how you interact with Oscar because that's what's keeping him alive." So our friends and family, Oscar's family has been absolutely amazing at showing up and continuously reminding him how loved he was in the Cayman Islands and how important him and his family have been for everyone here. And it has made a world of difference in terms of him finding that happiness in a situation where it's really hard to find happiness.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
So we talked a little bit about burnout. What are some of the early warning signs, do you think, that someone might be approaching burnout or that you kind of notice when you might be?
Yeah.
When it's time to step back?
So I'm an interesting one in that I have a couple of autoimmune disorders, and I have, I have my challenges of my health as well. So for me, my body screams at me. I have a massive burn and rash on my thigh that has come out over the last week and a half. And it's just because I don't yell at trees very often. I don't go and scream at people. I just sit there and I stuff it down.
Internalize it.
So, the body says a lot more than we quite often will give credit to. I got tonsillitis this week and my body was just like, "You have to stop. You're not listening to your leg. You're not listening to anything. You have to stop and lay down for a few days." And I think quite often we become so disconnected from paying attention to ourselves because all of our energy is being paid to paying attention to the person that we're trying to keep alive.
Yeah, for sure.
So body for sure. One thing I really realized that if my social energy is drained, it's a sign that I need to retreat from everyone. So, I'm getting a little bit better at recognizing that. When I start breaking down crying unexpectedly at a commercial, those are all my signs right now. And those aren't the hormones. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to move on to, I think it's a passion of yours, which is Pilates. And also massage therapy. And with your specialization in neurospecific Pilates and massage therapy, how can movement and body work support both the person experiencing illness and the partner who is caring for them? I think we may have talked about this a little bit.
Yeah. I think for the person that is sick and dealing with the illness, I think it's really so much of their body autonomy gets taken away from them as they're going through medicine, right? Everything is there poking and prodding without a lot of love or comfort or support as it comes by, right? And everything is very clinical. And so for me, I really truly believe that health and wellness for the patient is so important that they remember that their body actually belongs to them still. It's not the property of the doctors. It's not the property of the chemo. It's still their body. So it has a really amazing ability for them to be able to go in and actually reconnect with them instead of feeling like they are just a vessel for their doctors to practice medicine on. For a caregiver standpoint, that's how I get rid of my stress. It's how, if I wasn't burning off that energy somewhere else, I'd probably be throwing plates at a wall, or I'd be creating Cayman's first rage rooms so that we could go beat some computers, You have to get it out of your body somehow, or else it just builds and builds and builds, and it starts to turn into illness. And I'm dealing with enough illness in my life right now. I don't need to add to that equation because I'm not actually getting rid of that somato-emotional components.
Now, if a person isn't able to, let's say, go to Pilates for whichever reason, they're not able to get there or afford it, and even have massage therapy, because there's so much to be said for touch, right? What are some things that you would recommend for, let's say, caregivers for now, that they can do? I'm going to guess that one of them is surrounding themselves by good people.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugs are free.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hugs are free. Sure, it's really lovely when a massage therapist knows what muscle to push on in order to deal with a trigger point. But you know what? A hug is going to give you just as much dopamine and endorphin release and provide as much comfort, if not maybe a little bit more, especially if it comes from someone that you know that loves you. So, that kind of stuff, all I have to do quite often is just walk over to someone and be like, can you please give me a hug? And it's something that I've had to learn to ask for, because I don't get a lot of hugs. I don't get a lot of that kind of interaction anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, just asking for that small stuff. I mean, if you really want to move, YouTube has free videos that you can do yoga, or you can do Pilates, or you can do Tai Chi. There's many easy ways to access fitness if that's what you're looking for. But ultimately for me, getting out in nature and walking is the cheapest, freest, most fulfilling thing that I can do for my brain. And it's, again, you don't need a lot, but it's just a moment to step away, realize that you're one small speck of dust in this massive universe, and that you can remove yourself. Looking at a sunrise and a sunset for me is just that's probably has more benefit than sitting and talking to a therapist for an hour. Right. Again,
I enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say one thing about some common misconceptions. And I don't know if you would agree, but I find sometimes the common misconception is that you're okay and that they won't approach you to give you a hug.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to make you cry, or people get really, I think, nervous around people because you don't know what to say, or you don't know what to do.
And you don't want to say the wrong thing and say anything wrong, or to show emotion in front of us, because they think that it's supposed to be all about us, but it's not. Everyone gets affected when someone is sick like this. And emotions that go into understanding. And I think not many people have an experience of dealing and confronting death until we do reach our middle life. And all of a sudden it kind of takes you aback, and you realize that you don't necessarily have the skills in your toolbox, or the tools in the toolbox, in order to understand how you're supposed to react to these situations. And it's a whole lot of stumbling through for everyone.
Because I guess we don't talk about it a lot, or it's sort of like a taboo topic, or a quiet.
Absolutely, especially in North American culture, right? If you look at Buddhist culture, they talk about death from birth. It's a continuation of the life,
right?
So there's definitely some societal things that really hinder us in this side of the world, that it really leaves people unprepared to be able to handle this, where it doesn't completely emotionally break them down.
I think so too. This is a little bit off topic, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about my mom, and she's getting older, and how I wanted to talk about this with my mom. And my mom was like, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm fine. Not forever. There will be a time. And so I was talking to my friend about it. It's from their generation, right? No, we don't talk. It's fine. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Don't you worry about that.
We're immortal.
She's she's into her 80s now. So it's it's coming.
Yeah.
But and I said to my friend, it feels weird now trying to talk about it, because we never did talk about it. But imagine this was something we always talked about, from a very young age. And we were like, if anything happens to me and your dad, and this is this is what I want you guys to do. And this is where you're going to go live. And if it was just something that we talked about every year, then it wouldn't feel, it would be normalized. It would feel
traumatizing.
As traumatizing. Yeah. And then not knowing what to say, or not knowing how to deal with it. Because now, being in midlife, it's all of a sudden, it seems all of a sudden that
it's coming quicker.
It's coming. And you're like, well, it's been coming this whole time. Like we
yeah.
just never talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a point that I wanted to make there.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's gone.
It's okay. It comes back. So if we're looking at couples who are navigating something like this, and let's say couples that are younger, in their 40s and 50s, and then couples that are much older, is there different types of support systems that you find that you can lean on when you're younger as opposed to when you're older? Or
I think when we're in our 40s and 50s, we tend to have a larger group of friends around us.
I agree.
So I think that makes a big difference. Whereas when you get up into your older years, it's really depending on your children and your family, first and foremost. So I think that makes a big difference. I think a lot of the challenges in terms of those two different ages, when you're in your 40s and 50s and you get told that you're going to die within a year, you don't have your wills in place. You don't have your affairs in order. You haven't even thought that that's something that you're supposed to think about. When you're getting up into your 70s and 80s, you start to realize that it's just right around the corner. And quite often you will have that stuff in place. That has been extremely overwhelming for us to go through and sorting out bank accounts and wills and property and all that sort of stuff. And it's, at least we're at the age where we have those professional networks and those professional relationships that we can lean on. Whereas again, when you get older, you might not necessarily have that relationship, and it can quite often be very daunting. Are you choosing the right professional that's going to give you the right advice? Whereas we have a little bit more ability to kind of lean on friends and people that we can trust, because we're still in that age of kind of being around corporate structures and that sort of thing.
Well, and I think too, when we're younger, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can also intercept as that caregiver, where if you're older, you may not be able to, and then you have to lean on other medical, like a live-in nurse or something like that. That kind of leads me to my next question, which is, how important is it to bring in outside help? And I guess it's probably a loaded question where it's individual, isn't it?
It is really individual. And it really depends on where your challenges are on your day-by-day life. So, I mean, for Oscar, as he gets sicker and sicker, I know that in-home nursing is going to be an absolute non-negotiable. I can't do bed transfers. He's going to have more and more challenges with his mobility, with his speech, with his ability to eat, his ability to talk, never mind the cognitive changes in him. So I know that as much as I understand how to take care of someone in that state, I can't do it all. And that's where we're really lucky, especially in Cayman, that we have some phenomenal nonprofit organizations that are there to lean on. We have Helping Hands. Jasmine Palliative Care is just absolutely phenomenal. What our MPO is going to be able to do to step in and be able to take care of people, when you're dealing with those later years, and Parkinson's and the family not necessarily being around, then so I think the awareness of where you can actually turn to is where most people struggle. They don't even realize that there might be someone out there that can help them. And it takes a lot to be able to ask for that help and even know where to start to look for it as well.
Hence the gray area and why it started.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So, which is not one of the questions that I have, but when someone reaches out to the gray area because of a diagnosis, do you have people that support in every area for them? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have people that can go and sit in the medical appointments with them. We have, companions that can go and just sit in the doctor's waiting room with them, be able to drive them and take them, help with groceries, nursing support through helping with medication allocation, because that can be super, super daunting as well. We have all of that support that as soon as you walk out of that doctor's office and you've been told A, B, or C, that we are there to help take care of everything else that is required in order for this person to be able to live to their best capabilities.
So then what were people doing before?
They were just fighting on their own.
Leaning on, really?
Fighting on their own. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you could give one piece of advice to someone who just found themselves in the role of a caregiver for their partner, what would it be?
Talk to other people that are going through a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that you have to reinvent the wheel. Don't think that you have to figure it out all on your own. There are people out there that have gone through a similar experience. There are professional people that you can reach out to that have some sort of understanding of it, but you have to reach out to other people because doing it on your own is just not an option.
And for couples who are listening, who may not be facing illnesses, but want to build resilience in their relationship during midlife, what can they start doing now?
I think honest, upfront communication that is unemotional and deals with facts is one of the most important things in a relationship. So, I have my little okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about some really nasty, dirty stuff right now, but we're going to do this with the understanding that we love each other, that we're here to support each other, and that this is really difficult conversations to have. So feelings are allowed, but taking the feelings out on each other is not allowed. Mm. And I will always start every conversation that way, exactly those words. And then I think you have to remember that the person on the other end of that relationship is there because they want to be there as well. And they do love you. And sometimes we have different love languages. Sometimes we use different languages. Mm-hmm. Everyone trades a different currency in life. So what my currency is different to what Oscar's currency is. But if you just sit there with an open mind and you're willing to have just honest, upfront, unemotional communication, it makes those really difficult conversations much easier to have.
I think a lot of people don't have them.
I do too, mm-hmm. Right? I think it's what can strengthen a relationship, mm-hmm. but some people don't want to go through that, the messiness of it. Emotional intelligence is a very rare commodity in today's world, mm-hmm. unfortunately. Yeah. And it requires constant commitment and constant practice to be emotionally intelligent. And if your partner is not matching that emotional intelligence, the ability for you to be able to say, wait a second, we need to come at this at a different way, and not just immediately retaliating and matching energy for energy, but saying okay, let's understand why you're reacting like this. Let's understand, why we have to have this conversation. It does make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And I do think there is a component of it where we're all a product of our environment. So how we were raised by our parents, where you don't talk about those kinds of things. And at some point we have to change mm-hmm. that, mm-hmm. or else you just continue to repeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be really tough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm really lucky. I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on therapy in my life. And it has really, unfortunately, benefited me in this situation mm-hmm. in a major way. Mm-hmm. Because I have had to teach myself how to communicate effectively for someone to be able to hear what it is that I'm actually trying to say, right. instead of them hearing what they think I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And so, that I really do believe that people have to invest in their emotional health and their emotional intelligence. Yeah. And especially at this age, if we don't do it now, it's going to make everything so much harder when we hit our 70s and 80s as well.
Yeah, mm-hmm. for sure. Yeah. Where can listeners learn more about the gray area?
So we have a website, which is www.thegrayarea.ky, and gray is spelled with an E, the proper British way, not the American way. We have an Instagram account as well, which is the Gray Area KY. We're in newspapers and on TVs a lot right now, just because we have had our launch. So, there's definitely a lot of us out in the world right now. Mm-hmm. But go to our website, send us an email. And if it's someone that is actually needing help immediately, I can guarantee you'll be back to you within 12 to 24 hours, and we will be there ready to help hold hands and help give some guidance. Right. So we're here as a little net for everyone.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially with not feeling the greatest today, too.
Good. So. I only cried a little bit. So.
Thanks for joining us on Breast Intentions. We hope you felt seen, supported, and maybe had a few laughs along the way. Don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review us. Your support keeps the conversation alive. Follow us on social media for more insights, behind-the-scenes fun, and updates on future episodes. Got a topic you want us to dive into? We'd love to hear from you. Remember, life's too short for bad bras, toxic relationships, and kale you don't actually like. So until next time, stay bold and keep your breast intentions exactly where they belong, front and center.
Now go crush midlife, or at least today's to-do list. Cheers!